So from 1960 to 2000, roughly, you have what we call the forerunner stage. Then Michael Emerson publishes his research in a book called Divided by Faith in 2000. And for us, in terms of the movement, this really marks the end of the forerunner stage and the beginning of what is called the pioneer stage. Now, pioneers are not if you think about it, they're not the first people to discover things. Like pioneers didn't discover California, for instance. But pioneers come after forerunners, and they recognize intrinsic value. They recognize, hey man, do you understand what you got here? Look at the ocean view you got, look at, and they realize this is something really special, something spectacular here. And pioneers then begin to codify or to organize thought and best practices to make something palatable or more accessible to the masses. So for instance, pioneers say, if we hire a sheriff for this town, pool our money, hire a sheriff, we can lower range crime and attract more families and business to our growing little town. Pioneers say if we circle our wagons, we got a better chance of surviving the long journey from the East Coast. If we go north over the Oregon Trail, we won't die in the mountains of Colorado. And so they see this intrinsic value, and they codify it for masses in the future. From 2000, and what's in a sense predicted, about a 20-year stage here we're in called the pioneer stage of this movement. And the first 10 years, and anybody who's actually doing it now is a pioneer in my book, in our book, because we're learning, we're discovering and articulating theology, best practices, core commitments, common challenges, how to overcome them, models, sociology, and all that's being codified in books, blogs, writing, experiences, like a national conference in 2010. So we're in this pioneer stage building the case, and that's, again, quoting back to Michael's news statistics, we see the needle moving. Now, in 2010, there was a national conference, the very first one in San Diego, drew 400 people from 31 states, 32 states, broadcast live to another 414 countries over 2 days, unique viewers. And this really crested and it galvanized the movement, took it to a different level, and really it's kind of the apex of the pioneer stage. So now we're on the backside of the pioneer stage, heading towards early adopters. And again, no one's a prophet, we can't predict it, but you can easily see now with the momentum this movement's gaining that by 2020, if you could snap your fingers, you'd say 15 to 20% of the churches in America would be 15 to 20% diverse by the year 2020. And of course, that's that tipping point number of 15 to 20%. You hit that, then the entire church has to adjust in the early adopter stage, which ultimately ushers in a mainstream stage that by the middle of the century, maybe sooner, given the internet and the growth of the movement, as God only knows. But the point is, there is a day coming that if your church is not multi-ethnic, healthy, multi-ethnic, economically diverse, it's going to be irrelevant in terms of its presentation of the gospel to a community, to this country, to the city. And we're already seeing that right now. And so the point is, homogeneous, segregated churches are going to become increasingly irrelevant, in my opinion, as this century continues. And the relevant churches are going to be those that can speak the gospel cross-culturally to an increasingly diverse and cynical society.
So tell us, we're sitting here at Leadership Network in Dallas. We're in a 2-year learning cohort of 12 churches across the U.S. who are multi-ethnic and trying to get better at that. Mm-hmm. Talk about the experience we've had as churches over the last year and a half. We got 6 more months to go. How relevant is that, the role of this group in having these conversations right now?
After the conference in 2010, Leadership Network validated a growing movement and therefore launched this learning community or leadership community for multi-ethnic churches. 12 churches were recruited to be a part of this 2-year process, as you mentioned. And it's just another step in the pioneer stage to continue to galvanize, build relationships, discover best practices, and to collect bodies of knowledge. So one collection of body of knowledge is a book. One is a blog. This is producing a whole nother set of codified collective wisdom that adds to the momentum, that provides resourcing, and connects individuals of like mind who are doing it in a variety of towns in a variety of ways, etc. And so it's a very important stage. It's a very important signpost in the growing development of this movement. And just again another sign that's happening. I think coming out of this, one of the things that we've learned here is that multi-ethnic, economically diverse churches are a very different animal than the traditional church that Leadership Network or others work with. And so funding is an issue when you're dealing with multi-ethnic, economically diverse churches. So what we want to do is rather than continue to ask churches to come here and pay the kinds of money, the kind of money is required to be a part of the experience that Leadership Network's been providing for years, is to actually farm that out to the teaching churches, as it were, to many of our churches in this room, and get 12 churches, 10 others to come to our churches, do it in our environment at a much lower cost, but still with the deliverables. So the movement's going to advance, I think, even in a greater way. I mean, rather than one group every 2 years coming through here, we could have 10 groups going through churches around the country. So it's a very important signpost for continued development of the movement.
Lastly, what's your hope for the conference in 2013? This is the second national conference.
Yeah, we're really excited. We waited 3 years, we're at two, but when the conference comes, it'll be 3 years since the 2010 conference. And that was intentional, to wait to continue to build up grassroots of the movement, relationships, etc. But we're very excited to host as a network and this group the 2013 National Multi-Ethnic Church Conference, the second National Multi-Ethnic Church Conference in Long Beach, November 5th and 6th, 2013. I'll just say this in case anybody's looking, mosaix.info/MECC 2013. That's where you can get the information on the current information on the conference. But this will gather the epicenter of the movement, as it was in 2010. This will represent the epicenter of the movement, certainly in the United States and to some degree beyond. But this will be the collective mind, the collective wisdom. It'll come together, bodies of, again, the Pioneer just advances the whole thing, movement, getting denominational buy-in, network buy-in, local church buy-in, and really just trying to fan the flames to say we're here, meaning the movement is here. Gosh, in a human way, we had 400 in November 2010. It'd be great to double that. Not because it's all about numbers, but just, again, to show the advance of the movement. And, whatever God gives us is going to be a great time, but we'll certainly work hard to get as many denominations, network schools, people, pastors involved in this very important conference with main stage speakers and then many workshops that will address the various nuances of the multi-ethnic church. And then we'll just see what comes out of that. But this is all in the second half of the Pioneer stage, and I look forward to seeing what comes after.
Thanks, Mark.
You bet.